Good morning and welcome to Painting in Your Page. I can't talk this morning. Good morning. Welcome to Painting in Your PJs with Minette. I am Dr. Minette Riordan, and yes, we are live. You got me with all of the tech issues, the voice issues, the crazy morning hair. Not in my PJs this morning because we have a plumber coming to the house this morning, and it felt more appropriate, perhaps, to not be in my pajamas. But my preferred way of spending my days is in my art studio, painting and creating in my pajamas. If you are brand new to Painting in Your PJs with Minette, welcome. I am so excited that you're here. And we are working this year. Good morning, Tori, on a series of paper dolls, and I'm calling this the Paper Doll Chronicles. What I'm loving about working with paper dolls, it's a very unique way to work with parts of self, to work with different aspects of our being for healing and transformation, for celebrating who we are, for acknowledging all of the stories that make up the whole of who we are today. And I believe deeply in the transformative power of art as a tool for personal growth and self-discovery. And paper dolls are my current favorite obsession and way to do this. I'm so excited. So the first part of February, we created a doll to represent our inner muse. Well, the thing that gets in between us and our muse is our inner critic. So the title of the video today is Why You Must Create an Inner Critic Doll. It's because your inner critic deserves a voice. So often we try to ignore or shove that voice aside. And the truth is good morning, Karen, or good afternoon, when we give our critics some credibility, when we give it some love and attention and see what it is that it really needs from us, then it doesn't become so pesky. It doesn't become like the little devil on your shoulder, that insidious secret voice, but instead, when you allow it to be front and center, when you have a picture of your muse and a picture of your critic or a doll of each hanging in your studio out on your table, you have the opportunity to dialogue with them. In the transformative sort of method that I teach, I call it the creative discovery cycle. And it's all about starting with a powerful prompt, doing some visual creative, and then following that up with some journaling. So we're going to mix that up a little bit today, and we're going to do some journaling right on our paper doll template. I'll be using the same template that we've been using all year. There's a link to it in the description of the video, and many of you already have it. And when you see it, you can draw your own as well. So today we're going to personify our inner critic. I'm going to share some journaling prompts. I'm going to work through issues related to my own inner critic live with you this morning. And we're going to create a fun, may not sound fun, but we're going to create a fun paper doll representation of our inner critic. And this is going to be a double-sided doll. So today we're going to create the negative, insidious, mean girl version of our paper doll. And then next week, we're going to reverse that inner critic to a transformed, healing version of the voice that's there to keep you safe. Good morning, Teddy. So happy to have you here. So let me go ahead and turn my camera around. And so welcome to everyone who's joining me live. If you're out there watching and you haven't popped in to say hello, please say hi in the chat. It means the world to me that know you're there. And if you're catching me on the replay, I'd love to hear from you too. What are you loving about this video? So comments. I had this fun conversation with a client yesterday, and we were talking about money and reciprocity and energetic exchanges. She's considering starting a business and trying to decide, is this just going to be a free offering or a paid offering? And I was sharing about how much I love my YouTube channel and love being here with all of you. And your comments are the energetic exchange that I receive because I do this for free. But I am always so grateful for each and every one of you that shows up live or that catches the replay and takes a minute to comment or to like the video. So it means the world to me when you guys do that. And it also lets other people know that this is a video worth watching. So your likes and your comments are really, really meaningful to me. I read them all, try to respond to them all. So keep those comments and interaction coming. Good morning, Yvonne. Welcome, welcome. Yvonne, I am so appreciative of you. You have been here since the very, very beginning. I think Teddy as well, Tori, it's how we met. So I love our growing community here on YouTube, and I can't believe this is the beginning of my third year of this series, and I think I am having a lot of fun with these paper dolls, and I'm missing art journaling. So I have some fun ideas for how to integrate paper dolls into art journaling starting in March, and can't wait to show you the book that I created when I was in Austin. So fun ideas to come. I have a bottomless well of ideas and not enough time to play with them all. So over the last 2 weeks, we created our Muse doll to represent that aspect of us that does have boundless creativity, that loves life, that celebrates the inner artist within you. And I love how she came out. I did end up making her a full dress and ended up putting, this says there she is and has the heart. I just glued these right onto the dress just with a glue stick, added this fun little apron, right? And thank you, Karen. Thank you, Yvonne. Yeah, I'm super excited about where we're going to go in March. And I really love her. She feels very peaceful and calming to me. She has the opposite energy of what I think about when I think about my inner critic. So as someone who is really having a love affair with artificial intelligence, many of you have the paper doll faces. Well, this morning I had so much fun creating inner critic faces. So I created monster faces. This one, the prompt was scary mother faces or scary teacher faces. I think these were scary teacher faces. Like when you think about personifying your inner critic, good morning, Blanca, what does your inner critic look like? And for me, even though I use the prompt scary, these are hilarious. They're very fun. For me, these feel like fun paper mache masks. And these feel like, scary movie or comic books. And I will be, for those of you that are on the email list, I will be sharing all of these by email so that you can use them as inspiration for creating your own faces. But I'm really being drawn to this big dude here this morning, and this was floating around on my desk, and I think he's going to need some silly hair, so he's already starting to come together. But first I want to start, as I always do, with some questions about who is my inner critic. And you'll notice that I haven't cut out the templates yet because it's much easier to write and color the template when it's on the page and then cut it apart and add information later. So I've got some prompts to share with you all this morning. And I love working with the inner critic. I have been teaching, writing, and working with my inner critic probably since way back when I first started my creative journey, and especially when I started working with soul collage. And I often think that these paper dolls are like a different version of soul collage where they represent the different aspects of self. And I did a short video the other day where I am going to start the 100-day project. It starts on Saturday, and I'm going to be doing 100 days of paper dolls, but those paper dolls are going to really represent parts of self, and they're going to be small paper dolls because I got to make 100 of them. And I'm probably going to record another video about that, about how I'm preparing for that and what my plan is for that. But it got me thinking about how long I've been working with the inner critic, and we might even have more than one version of an inner critic. There might be the inner critic that shows up when we want to make art, that shows up when we look in a mirror or go shopping for swimsuits. Always a favorite thing to do. So think about today specifically. We created our inner creativity muse. And today I want you to think about who's the inner critic that judges your art. What's the aspect of you that shows up over and over again? And what does it say to you when you sit down to make art, especially if you're trying something new or learning something new? So my inner critic, when I start to draw, gets very loud. Or when I try watercolor paint, or when my art wants to go towards a realistic bent, but my skills aren't aligned with the vision in my head, that inner critic can get really loud. So I want to think about that and just start to personify that. So what are some of the things that my inner critic might say? You can't draw. You're ridiculous to think you can do that. And already I feel the emotion welling up when I think of this. And my inner critic has often the same phrase over and over again in every aspect, right? That you're not enough. You're not good enough. And when it comes to art, it's like you're not good enough to sell, to show, to teach, to share, right? Like the weight of those expectations feels like a huge weight on my shoulder. And when I think about images, it feels like, this big weight in my gut. And I get this very sort of sinking feeling in my gut when I start to hear those voices. But the more that we work with this voice and pay attention to it, the more we can start to ask it questions. And we'll work more on that next week about how do we transform our inner critic into our inner bestie. Because when you transform your critic to your ally, everything changes. And then rather than this inner mean girl, if you will, you suddenly have this inner protector, this inner ally who's going to support your inner muse. So these dolls are going to work beautifully together, and they're all important parts of this story of claiming ourselves as artists. And I would say even artist with a capital A. So it feels up here like there's not even words. There's just like messy thoughts, right? Like I can't get a lot of clarity around what I'm hearing or what's being said. But how do these messages make me feel? They make me feel tired. They make me feel sad, angry, like pissed off. I spell that right, pissed off, but also really frustrated. Like I'm 60 years old. Why is this voice still getting in the way, right? So I think about that as well, and I want to often say to my inner critic, F you, right? Fuck off. Pardon the language. So, but I want to say that, right? But dealing in anger, responding in anger is not the solution for working with my inner critic. And the first step is simply acknowledging what that voice is. Another one that might come up, you can't charge that much. When I first, had to put a price tag on a piece of art that I sent to a gallery that I shared with you guys recently, there was that story of, oh, that's too much. People won't buy it for that. But it happens to be a piece that I love, and I'm not really sure I wanted to sell, and I'm proud of myself for showing it. So I had to let go of that and put a number on it that, I thought was reasonable for what other things are priced at in the gallery, but like that whole conversation around art and money is a big one that comes up and over again. I love it, Yvonne. And one of the things that I want you to notice, like when I was writing on my, let's see, I'm going to take her dress off here for a second. Maybe. So when I was writing and coloring my muse, it's beautiful and soft, and the movement here is similar but not chaotic, right? The writing is neat and readable. So I'm noticing already over here what it feels like is chaos. It feels like hurtful words, and the words want to be big. It's painful. One that, I had someone close to me say, that's not real art. Like all these different things, right, that we get told throughout our lives. And I would also say, you can't dance was a big one for me as a small child going to ballet classes. I was told I was too big for ballet. You can't sing. Another one I was told, right? So things that we get told throughout our lives become these huge stories that impact what it is that we want to put out into the world and what we do want to share and what we want to create, even when we're just creating for ourselves. And it just feels like this, pool of energy that kind of blocks everything. So when I start to think about if my inner critic were a character or a figure, what would it look like? It is the realist art, right? It is the realist art. All this, energy, right? And I'm not going to take that anymore. So again, we're going to transform the critic into our ally next week. But today we're going to sit with the truth of that inner critic, because when we face that voice, when we acknowledge the voice, when we get that that voice really has evolved simply in order to keep us safe, and when we personify it, add some humor and playfulness to it, we take its power away. When we try to avoid it or not listen to it is when it has the most power over us, because it's sneaky, right? That feels like it wants to be on here. My inner critic is sneaky. It catches me by surprise. So today I wanted to, again, think about what could I create as a paper doll that's the opposite of this beauty, but that's also fun and silly, because when I make it silly, then I don't take it so seriously, and I don't take myself so seriously. I don't take myself so seriously. That inner critic in me is also the academic, the wise one, the one who should know better, who should do better, the high achiever, like all the things, the unrealistic standards that I hold myself to all flow from this creepy little inner critic right here. And now I have done a ton of work around the inner critic, and it still shows up over and over again. Thank you, Yvonne. I'm glad you're loving this. So where we want to go next is to personify the inner critic. And if you're watching and you don't have the template, just make your own template. But I am going to go ahead and use this one as the base, but it also needs to have a big monster body to go with its big, funny monster head. And this is going to end up being a pretty big doll as well. So I'm not going to worry about coloring all of these words. I am going to worry about scissors. Here are my scissors. So I'm going to take a minute to get all these pieces cut out and put together. Do I have my brad still here? Those will work. And I'm curious, as you're listening to all of this, if you're willing to share, what are some of the things your inner critic says to you? Because I know when you share them, you're going to feel better, number one. You'll be able to laugh at it, number two. And other people are going to go, oh, yes, my inner critic also says that. And in one of her books, maybe in Daring Greatly, Brene Brown, and she has a lot of videos about it as well, about how we all have creativity scars, she calls them. Elizabeth Gilbert also has a way of talking about inner critic. And we frequently have childhood trauma or wounds from things people have said to us about our authentic expression through art, through dance, through movement, through sports. I was always the last kid to be picked. I could have cared less about sports, and I wasn't particular fit, nor was I interested, right? So now I know that, but as a kid, you know, it hurts your feelings, even though you know you're not any good, to be the last one picked. My cousin Elena and I were both told we were too big to ever be good at ballet, and we were 5 people, or 6, maybe 6, little bitty. It's like, really? Talk about what the fuck. Sorry, I've got lots of F words in me today, so apologies for anyone who doesn't want to hear that. You can just expect it here on occasion. So I stopped dancing. I stopped playing sports, right? I stopped doing the things that I was told I wasn't good at. Over the last, since 2012, when I started my first coaching business, working with artists and creatives, would be a wealthy, wealthy woman if I had a dime for every time someone said to me, my parents wouldn't pay for me to go to art school because they didn't believe I could make a living. And the parents had good intentions to keep people safe. They wanted their children to be successful and cared for. They didn't want them to struggle. But that scarcity mindset around the starving artist syndrome has created so much grief and sadness and longing for so many people. And it's created a culture that no longer values the arts, even though it's been proven that when kids study the arts, they are better at other subjects. Music specifically helps with math. Not to mention the stress relief benefits, right? Oh my gosh, you guys are amazing. You're too old, not good enough at this, can't draw, paint, no ideas. Nobody wants to hear you. People will think you're crazy. No one will want to buy those things, so why bother? You call that art? What makes you think anyone will like that? Right? So, and Tori, I think that one's so important. No one will want to buy those, so why bother? And then suddenly we've lost all our joy in creative expression. So much of my work and what I teach has nothing to do with making art for public consumption and everything to do with falling in love with our inner artist, for using art to heal and transform those old stories. Dolls, are you joking? My husband thinks it's hilarious that I am down here or upstairs making all these tons of paper dolls. But guess what? I love them and I'm having fun. All right, I'm going to cut out my monster face, and later this afternoon I will share all of these monster faces by email as well for anyone that wants a little monster inspiration. And working with the inner critic is a powerful reminder to think about all the different parts of self that have a voice, right? That are clamoring inside of us for attention. And when you've got a monster like this inside of you, it's often the loudest voice, and its voice can drown out the other voices, the voices of the protectors, the voices of your muse. Debbie Ford wrote an amazing book many years ago. It's not a new book, called something like The Dark Side of the Light Chasers. It was an amazing book full of all kinds of transformational exercises. But one of the ones that I always remember is, and I've done this with other mentors as well, is who's driving the bus? So if you were to do a guided visualization and imagine yourself standing on a street and a bus pulls up to the bus stop and you go to get on the bus, notice first who's in the driver's seat, what aspect of yourself is in the driver's seat, and also notice all the other parts of self that are riding on the bus. They're all there. Most of the time we're not conscious of them. And the more conscious of them we become, and the more that we acknowledge them, the less pesky they are, and the more we can be in the driver's seat of our own bus and our own life. I'm like, that's really dark. There we go. Isn't he cute? Like, he's so scary cute. I absolutely love him. I think he needs like maybe some silly eyelashes. But if we're going to make inner critic dolls, we might as well make them hilarious, right? So this is about learning to have some fun with the process. The last thing that I want is to get on that bus and realize that my inner critic is driving the bus. Why? Because if my inner critic is driving that bus, then I am generally operating from a place of fear and reaction rather than a place of confidence and choice, rather than from a place of confidence and choice. Okay, dude, you need, I had pulled this out earlier because I kind of like this red, and I'm going to cover up all the scribbles, all the words. I'm going to collage over this. I thought maybe I was going to paint up the body, but it feels like I just want to cover up all this chaos, right? And have this silly version of the doll. And I think I want this part down here. And I may have to get my bucket of fun yarns out because it feels like he wants to be fuzzy. And furry. So, and I'm thinking about what fabrics do I have, or what yarns do I have? How can I make this dude feel furry? Let's see, what do we think? It's good. He's going to be a very colorful mighty monster here. Oh, that paper is shiny. And even though I'm, hearing some of this vitriol, right, and some of the things that are scary and some of those mean things in my head, the more I speak them out loud, I get them out of my body, out of my head. Great question, Tori. So I don't think of it as masculine but this monster is feeling very masculine. So some people, it might be a she, it might be an it. I had one friend who I did a inner critic workshop, and her inner critic was a frog, and this fun Mexican sapo, un frog. And I can't remember what she named it, but it was really fun. Yeah, goofy scary, right? And oh, call him goofy when he rears his head. I love it. But there's something, this could be a girly monster too, because it felt important that my monster had some of this fun fuzzy head. Oh, look, now it looks like my monster has pigtails, which is pretty frickin' hilarious. So maybe it's going to have some pigtails, and then it becomes a girly monster. So that transforming the image, right, to make it feel masculine or feminine. And I think when we personify that inner critic, if we make it genderless, right, it's about the energy of the critic. Um, yeah, then it becomes an it, right? And then it's even more like a monster. Like it's like the Pixar movies Monster Inc. is what this reminds me of. Like it's a scary, not scary monster. And I do think it's really important to give your inner critic a name. So I love Yvonne is already ahead of the game and is going to call her inner critic Goofy, right? What a great name. Um, there's a funny scene, I think it was in one of those Monsters Inc., one of those movies where there's this giant woman and somebody in the movie asks the giant woman what her name is. I don't think it was Monsters Inc., it was a different one. Brad always remembers. And she says her name is Susan. And the scary monster goes, "Ooh, Susan." Like Susan is not a scary name, right? No offense to any Susans. But I love that sense of, it could be a Susan, not that scary. Um, it could be Manette, right? Some days I am that critic. So I think have fun with that. But it is fun to give it a name that's not your own, clearly. So again, we want to create this doll so that we can dialogue with it. I love that you watched that with your granddaughter last week. So fun. All right, I'm feeling maybe we'll get some of this blue on the other side here. I think these are the legs. And I'm cutting up an old book page I had a little library in front of my house when I lived in California, and somebody left this fun book with all these hand-painted images from the Olympics, and I've been carting them around for years, and the images have not ever gotten used. So I'm like, okay, we're just gonna figure out a different way to use them because the background images are really quite wonderful. And it's okay to have your inner critic look like an actual human being. You might have a face that shows up in your head as the personification of your inner critic, or like we had some of these scary dolls that were looked more like people as well. So they're, don't yours does not have to be a monster. Mine just feels very much like a crazy monster. All right. I love that pretty sunshine, but that bright sunshine does not go with my inner critic. Let's see what else we got here. And I am gluing this paper on to cardstock. I printed my doll on cardstock, and this is nice thick paper. So thicker paper is better when you're creating your dolls. They will hold together better. The brads will stick together better. I laugh every time I say brads because my husband's name is Brad. All right, I want to see if I can find some paper in my stash that is this color blue. It feels like it needs some more of that dark blue. So I'm going to dig around here for a minute. So I'm curious, when you think about your inner critic, is it a human? Is it an animal? Is it a make-believe character? Like, what pops into mind when you think about your inner critic? All right, those are all people. Oh, that might work. Some gel printed paper here. Oh, I like it. It's kind of fuzzy looking, so this is a good use. A monster, definitely. Good use of gel printed papers is for making your paper dolls. And I just turned the paper upside down because I wouldn't be able to see the pencil on that dark blue on the other side. And as I'm looking at this, I'm thinking, oh, I can just give my monster some big furry feet. I love fussy cutting. It's very mindful. I can't talk and fussy cut at the same time. Apparently, sometimes an alligator, sometimes my older brother. So it's a great, like, how can you turn an old photograph of your older brother into, look at that furry foot. I love it. The photograph of your older brother into an alligator, into a monster. A drag queen, big, bold, and demanding perfection. Oh, I love that with all the hair and the makeup. Very fun. I saw the best video with RuPaul yesterday on my Instagram, speaking of amazing queens, talking about joy as an act of resistance. And I've been seeing a lot of comments like that and really appreciating, remembering how important it is to stay in joy, not in fear. Okay, really liking those fuzzy feet. And get some arms going here. And maybe I can do that same thing on the outside of the arms. And just make my own fur for my monster. Somebody shared it on Instagram. It was just a little short clip. Yvonne, if I see it again, I'll share it with you. I'll send it to you. I don't think it was on RuPaul's page. It was someone else that just shared a little snippet. It's probably making the rounds. but it made me want to go find the interview and watch the whole interview. These are not the best scissors for fussy cutting. I can't wait to see RuPaul's book, House of Hidden Meaning. Oh, never even heard of that, Tori. Thank you. My books to be read list is so silly long and gets longer every day, but I gotta write that one down. House of Hidden Meaning. Thank you. Fun recommendation. All right, look at those furry arms and those furry legs. And I'm wondering if maybe he wants to be like short and fat, that he doesn't need all those extra body parts. That actually feels better. I bet you could look on YouTube, Yvonne, for RuPaul Joy as Resistance, and something would pop up. All right. He is definitely coming alive here. And I'm liking also making him a little bit smaller and chunkier. I think I have monsters on the brain as well, because Brad and I have been having fun. It's been cold and snowy, and been rewatching Harry Potter, just one of our favorites. All right, look at that silly monster. Yeah, he doesn't need all this extra bits and pieces. He does need that solid paper under there, though. All right, that's funny. The gel printed paper is perfect. And I think I might want some of it on his body as well to give him a little bit more fur. Her, I don't know, it. I keep saying him because he looks kind of monster-like. And I got to figure out, I think I might even just go get my stapler. So this is not attached. This is a braided piece from something else I created. Couldn't tell you what. But I love the colors and texture, and it was just floating around in my box here. And I don't see any double stick tape here. Yeah, I think a stapler would be perfect for just staple those on, and then it gets a little Frankenstein energy going there. Oh, I love the short, fat arms. I love the purple doesn't match. Nope, no neck. No neck. We can pull that down a little bit, and then his face is a little bit more on his neck. Let's see. Does he want a little fur liner here? Maybe. It's funny, Karen, on my people, they have to have a neck. They look really weird without the neck, but this dude does not need a neck. Little fur on his belly there. Okay, let's find my awl and some brads and put this dude together. A bow tie would be freaking hilarious. All right. Just lift him up a little bit, and then he looks like a little more of a neck there. And if you don't have an awl in your creative stash, they come in so handy for paper doll making because those brads can be tricky to get through multiple layers of paper. Sorry, I realize I'm off the camera there. Right, cute, lovable character, but obnoxious enough. And, you know, sometimes this dude has to be really obnoxious to get my attention. And the role of the inner critic evolved throughout your lifetime to keep you safe. It's the thing that we don't understand, especially as children, about that inner critic. And often that inner critic was formed when we were young, right? Like, I got picked last for PE. My mom says I had a really mean softball coach. I don't remember, but who told me I was terrible. So I never played sports again, right? Some part of me remembered that story. And so then the story became, oh, don't go play sports, right? People are mean, you're not good enough, like all the stories. Just poke that all right through there. And so that critic evolved to keep me safe from being hurt by others. It played an important role. But as an adult, I don't need the little inner critic in me to keep me safe. I am perfectly capable of doing that myself. Oh my gosh, this is one of the most fun dolls I think I have created. And for those of you that are joining me this weekend for the Mythical Makeover Experience and Quest for the Grail, we're also going to be making fun paper dolls. I made all of mine last night and I can't wait for that project. Like, the paper dolls are just showing up as such amazing teachers in so many areas of my life right now, and I'm super, super grateful for all the ways the dolls are helping me to see all the different parts of self. All right, I'm going to go get my stapler. I'll be right back. All right, let's see if we can make this hair stick. I may have to reinforce, make the paper at the top of its head a little bit stronger. We'll see. Hot glue would be another great way to attach something bigger like this to a paper doll. And I kind of love that he has steeples in his head, her head, its head. All right. That one may be too close. Okay, get you out of underneath. And I can guarantee you that my inner critic most of the time has arms raised, screaming, and yelling. So I think the body is too long. So he needs a little short, fat body. You know, I think, Tori, thank you for saying that. I have been doing, like I said, I've been doing this work for so long that I have generally more capacity for making fun of my inner critic than I might have in the past. And so I'm even more surprised when that critic shows up. That's better. You know, and I think, oh, I've made my peace, like I'm the one driving this bus, and then all of a sudden that inner critic, you know, or you might call it imposter syndrome or doubts and fears about I can't, I'm not good enough, all those stories that we tell ourselves. And sometimes we can find that we have a lot of confidence in one area of our lives and not a lot of confidence in another area, right? So I have a lot of confidence as a teacher, a facilitator, a speaker, and other areas of my life. Body confidence being one of them, sometimes still with art, that inner critic voice still shows up. Okay, so let's see if we can, it's like the light. It is, I don't know what it is, but it is a freaking cute monster. And I love, here she is in her power pose. So this is where, for me, a lot of the magic of doing this work really flows from interacting with what we create. It's not enough to just simply create intuitive art, but it's that final step of the creative discovery cycle is what you might call the analysis part. And it's really looking at our dolls and asking what's the story that they want to tell us, right? What is it that they have to share? She's like, I need my dress. When we listen to them, they will speak to us. They have a story to tell. They have support to offer. They have reminders. They're going to tell us why we're afraid. So the final step of that process is to spend time with your journal or just in your mind, dialoguing with your demon and with your muse, right? Just simply asking, what is the gift that you have for me? What is it that you're trying to tell me today? What do I need to know about you? My muse is saying you need to spend more time with me. And my critic is saying, showing your art in a gallery, Manette, that's really scary. I don't want to do that. It's too scary. And I have to remind this part of myself that I can do hard things, as Glennon Doyle says. I remind myself that I don't really care if the art sells or not. It's the courageous act of sharing my art in a new way that matters. Anything else I wanted to share? So next week, we're going to, his voice and his little like bouncy hair and look at his little jiggly head, like how much personality, like when I give him personality and those fuzzy feet, then all of a sudden he's not so intimidating. And I'm more likely to sit and have a conversation, right? Where she feels like this girly, calm, sort of fairy godmother. Oh, maybe she needs some wings. She might need some fairy godmother wings. So next week we're going to look at how can we transform this mean little sucker into an ally instead of a critic. It's going to be a ton of fun. I so funny. I love it, Teddy. Thank you. Right? So just noticing how different their energies are. There's a whole story here that represents all the parts of who I am as an artist, right? I am my own muse. I know that my creativity flows from within, and that beautiful flow can often get stopped by this dude. I think, Tori, you're right. It's definitely a dude. And he just told me his name is Jim. Don't ask me why, but he's Jim the scary dude. And I absolutely love this kind of introspective work that just sheds light on what's happening inside of me so that I remember when I get stuck to just reflect and ask, who's feeling stuck right now? Is my muse feeling stuck? Is my scary monster raising his arms and going, stop, stop, stop? Right? Like, pay attention to the different voices, because as soon as we honor and acknowledge the voices and the parts of self, they calm down and flow happens and magic happens and joy returns. So thank you for joining me today. This is Painting in Your PJs with Manette and Jim and Daisy. I think her name is Daisy. No, she says it's not Daisy, it's Sally. Okay, we've got Sally and Jim. A couple of good classic names here, hanging out together with you live on YouTube. I'll be back next week, same time, same place, 8 a.m. Mountain Time on Thursday. I think that's February 28th. Yes, you can do hard things. Amen to that, Tori. Teddy. Have a beautiful rest of your day, everybody, and thanks for playing along. See you soon.